Yo, what is up, beautiful people? This is Goku Samurai, and we are back with episode 2 of What If Deku Had the Sand Fruit from One Piece. Now, look, happy holidays, and welcome back. Without further ado, let's get into this. So, where we left off last is that Deku got told about One Four and was offered to become the successor, and Deku accepts. So now we're starting the training before Deku enters the entrance exam, and where we are right now, see, Deku was already pretty strong before he started the beach training. I don't think I mentioned it before, but because he had done his training as a kid and he was actually working out and stuff, that like he was still weaker than Bakugo, but he was like strong enough, I guess. So we'll just say he's like 75% of where he needed to be to get 1-4, if you know what I mean. Like, you know how Deku was like really weak and he needed to hit that like 100% just to barely handle it kind of thing. So yeah, Deku's already like 75%, so he's already half, like a bit of the way there. So just while Deku gets the whole training routine, he's doing all of his thing, they take him to the beach, he needs to clean this whole beach, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do it, whatever. Deku, after doing all of that training, in like 2 months of just exercising and doing everything routinely and just hard out, going like hundies at it, he just gets it in like 2 months. He gets to the point he needs to be to handle 1-4, but All Might doesn't give it to him right away because this kid still needs to, he still feels like he has like a lot to learn. And let's remember, Deku had to train for 10 months until he could handle it. So the fact that he was at 75 and he got it in 2 months, which was like, just shows how strong he is compared to like canon. Anyway, All Might learns that he needs to like teach Deku in the other 8 months like how to fight and how to weaponize his quirk. And after just talking to like Deku and going back and forth about like what he can do, he learns that Deku can't really control yet like how fast he can turn into sand, but like the way he can create sand is like instant, so it's not like that needs any work on. But yeah, it's just changing in between and like changing different body parts and specific parts into sand. And All Might isn't the best teacher for that, but he tries to teach him what he can, because All Might obviously here and he has 1-4, he doesn't have a quirk that can transform besides that one that's not canon, but everyone likes to think of Fury, how he just blows up into his balloon form and he's like really skinny. Anyway, that's a whole different theory. Anyway, All Might starts just sparring with Deku to teach him how to weaponize his quirk and to draw out all of the defensive possibilities. So he's like just going back and forth, like sparring, doing the 1-2s, and then All Might's like reserved, but he's trying to push this kid, like he's not holding back as like a lot. So he's like getting him up there, he's like just grazing Deku, and he's telling him, you need to turn that into sand, like just before you can even feel it coming, like predict it, you need to like look into the future kind of thing. And here Deku's like taking this all in, he's thinking about it, and he gets like a brief control on how fast he can turn into sand, and he realizes that if he keeps on training it quicker and quicker, he'll get it down. It's just because it's not something that he was doing every day, so he wasn't used to it. But he then realizes that when he turns into sand, right, he can't feel or see anything, like everything's passing through him, even air. And this is really similar to Mirio's quirk, how he can just fade through everything, but everything passes through him as well. This is the same thing with Deku. I mean, not everything can't really go through sand, like, because the sand is still something, but everything runs through it. So Deku can feel things, he can sense it, he can feel it, but he can't feel it because it's just heaps of grains of sand. He can't feel pain from it. So it's just going through him, but he can't see, he doesn't realize what's happening. And Deku learns he needs to, I guess, just work on how long he can handle going in that state 4 kind of thing. and Deku learns to use his sand that he creates, and he tries to focus on what he's sensing and what's going through his sand and like pinpointing it. So like they were running through drills where All Might would be over one place and Deku would be like, he had like a blindfold on, and then Deku would send out some sand, and then All Might would like go like run different places, go side to side, and Deku would just like put a whole mat of sand down on the ground, and then All Might jumping in between them, he would like, Deku would have to point to it, kind of thing, just like doing all these little training kind of things. Let's go into it too deeper, but Deku's power also gets stronger as he's getting stronger, and Deku starts to realize that, and he sees that like from where he was fighting the the sludge villain, he realizes that the sand he created then was so much less than what he can do right now. And Deku learns that he can also control sand that isn't his own. So the sand that was like around on the beach, he started training it. Like obviously it's weak because he has to try and find some sort of connection to it. So he grabs that sand that's on the beach, and all of that junk, all of that objects or whatever that was there, he was using the sand from the beach to lift up these things to make it easier for himself, but also training himself to, I guess, use his quirk accurately so they don't fall. And he was trying to break them down with the sand that was around him, because obviously he can't create a whole beach of sand yet. And All Might by now, he's trying to think of like, oh that's good, he's controlling his sand or whatever, but like how is he going to turn this into a weapon? And All Might tries to teach him about his super moves, but Deku already knows it because like he's been watching All Might since like he was a kid. And All Might tries to give ideas on how Deku can turn his quirk into a powerful weapon, and then Deku tries one of All Might's moves by like making, you know how he does that big X, he does a slashing motion at a broken down car, and he really focuses on while doing that slashing motion to make the sand, in his mind he was visually thinking, make that sand as sharp as possible. And then as soon as he sends the sand flying, it splits the truck in half, and both him and All Might were surprised. Deku learns that, and then he keeps practicing that for a while, just to where he's confident enough to where he can do it over and over again. And Deku learns that if he compresses sand, like really holds it like really tightly and just keeps on pressing it down over and over again, he can create sandstone and like make it hard and shape it into any form he wants. So Deku learns how to turn it into like things like throwing stars, or like little needles of sand, or like daggers. He's like trying to do all of these things, and he practices his throwing and everything so it hits harder, and he just creates these sandstones, and he learns how to throw it as sand and then turn it into sandstone midair, and it just breaks like all of these massive objects that are like junk and in the way. And Deku's gets pretty confident with that, and then he just uses his powers to break down all of the other junk and compress them with sand, and then turn it into these giant sand balls that are like the height of like All Might. So obviously he's getting way stronger with his quirk, and Deku's seeing all this, but he doesn't think it's enough, so he keeps on training and pushing his limits with his quirk every day. And in the first 4 months of training at the beach, he cleans the whole thing. And in canon, it took him 10 months to clean that whole thing. He did it in 4 months. So now this last 6 months is just like of him training to see what he can do with his quirk. And because all of these new things are just coming out of nowhere, and he doesn't really know what's happening because he's never had someone helping him, he's just been kind of going on it with himself. He learns that he can make a sinkhole with his own sand by focusing on one point and then moving all of the sand out of it, and then everything digs down and goes like pretty much sinks, just like how a sinkhole works. And yeah, Deku feels like way confident with his fighting now, but now he wants to spend like a month on his draining power where he absorbs the moisture of like things. So yeah, Deku wants to do that because like he's got all of these fighting stuff. He's like pretty confident in that now. He knows he can do better, but he feels like he's like neglecting this a big power that could potentially be a massive thing. So he sits by the beach and he just tries to like drain as much water from that beach as he can, or like over there, or he was going between the big water coolers and was putting his hand on that and he was draining all of that, and he would keep on going until he could like, or he could like not go anymore and he would just be bloated and throw up. And Deku would do that over and over again until he just felt confident to like he could do enough. And he watched step by step, he was getting stronger and stronger, and like he was handling it more and more. I guess him not doing consistently every day made it like beforehand not doing it every day made it like really hard for him to keep it up, so he was just weak and not ready for it at all. And in that last 5 months, since he spent 4 months cleaning the beach, that whole month focused on just his draining power. And then in his last 5 months, he continues just sparring and working on the special moves that he acquired like so far, like what he's learned so far. And a day before Deku finishes like his beach training, was like training before the entrance exam, Deku goes back to that park he used to always play as a kid and like train, and he finds that massive tree from the first episode where I mentioned he went to a tree and he was like trying to, yeah, so he went back to that tree and he realized that like he's not the same like timid little kid, and he's strong now. He feels strong, so he gently walks up to the tree, puts his right hand on the tree, and the whole thing withers and dies within seconds, and he feels fine. He feels like nothing happened. And Deku in his mind, he's just thinking, I'm not that little kid anymore. And that tree was representing everything that was holding him back and all of his past, like, oh, you're just gonna be this little weak kid forever, you're just gonna always get picked on. And he's like, that tree was just like, I guess a figurehead, like cornerstone, or it was that one piece that, good play there, it was that one piece that was holding him back. Not the tree itself, but just the meaning behind the tree. After that, Deku meets with All Might at the beach again. He gets 1-4 and he just heads into UA for the entrance exam. So not like Kennen, he doesn't he trips, right? But he catches himself with his sand because his reflexes have got faster before Uraraka can save him. Now, Uraraka bumps into him by accident, introduces herself, yada yada yada. Deku's still a nice guy. He's still a good kid. He's not like the serious angry guy who's always this all the time. He ends up getting embarrassed by Ida again because he's still mumbling about all of these heroes and all of these points and yada yada yada. Deku, and then that happens the day of the entrance exam. Deku goes to the thing. He's like one of the first ones there. He's focused. He's ready. And then as soon as it starts, everyone launches off and they're all running, and Deku is just like watching them all go, and he smirks. And then in that second, his legs turn into sand and he starts propelling him off the ground, and he flies past everyone, enters the arena and destroys 4 robots with like 1 sand blade. And everyone who was nearby was like, what the hell is this dude? Because they thought this kid, after being embarrassed by like Ida, was just some weak little kid that had like probably had a shit quirk or whatever. And then Deku goes off, destroying robot after robot, and then he's just going on and on, destroying like multiple robots, using his like sensory, like using his sand as a sensor to find where more robots were. And this is all like impressing the teachers and whatever. And then out of nowhere, coming from the left side, just a giant 0-point robot shows up and destroys buildings. Uraraka gets trapped and everyone just starts running away, and Deku sees this. He sees everyone running, and instead of being scared by this giant monster, Deku stands strong and he looks up at the robot, and he like walks forward as everyone runs away, and he's like grinning to himself. Like, this thing is nothing. I don't know why everyone's running. And then Deku uses All for One, but because he was stronger at this point, like stronger than Cannon, his bones don't break, right? But he does cause like minor fractions in his legs and that as he jumps up. So anyway, while he jumps up, he's in the air, and he's using All for One unconsciously. He's like, I'm gonna send a sand blade and cut this thing's head off. And he was like, he was just screaming, plus Ultra in his heart. Sends like a giant sand blade that was 10 times larger, and he didn't even realize like how he made that much. But because he was using 1-4 as well, 10 times larger sand blade, and it just cuts the head of the robot clean off. And then the rest of the body just explodes, everything goes off, and then it just hits the ground. And everyone just stops. They look up at Deku and they're like, what the and then that was it. But as Deku's falling down, he just starts feeling like his giant sting in his arm and his legs. And just before, and he realizes that, oh, I think my bones are like, he thinks they're broken, but like it's really just a fracture, and it's like he can't really, it's just the aftershock of his arm just stinging, and he can't like really handle it. And just before he hits the ground, he makes a little sand dune and cushions his fall, and he walks away. He meets the old lady that, I forgot what her name was, the doctor old lady that kisses people when they quirks and then they get healed. That lady, she heals him. She was like, realizes that, oh, your quirk hurts you, like you fractured your arms and your legs. And he was like, and he took that on board, and he was thinking about that in the back of his mind. Anyway, Deku goes home. He's happy with his performance, but he felt like he could have done a little more, could have destroyed more robots. And yeah, and he's just like, could have done more. He just felt this urge of like he needs to have done more. But life goes on, day goes on. He still thinks that, oh, even if I didn't get the most, I'll still probably make it in. At least he's hopeful, right? A week passes, he hears nothing. His mom busts through the door like on her knees again with the paper, the UA thing, and Deku finds out from All Might in his video that he actually had the second highest attack points with 74 points, only 3 behind Bakugo, because in that last minute or so of the exam he had to do that 0-point robot or whatever. But he had the second highest attack points, and then he found out about this thing called rescue points, and Deku also had the highest rescue points, making him the #1 in the school from the entrance exam. And with that, we're gonna cap it off there. That was episode 2, and please make sure to come back for episode 3. Now, happy holidays. I know it's almost Christmas. Well, for anyone outside of New Zealand or outside of Australia or anyone on my side of the world, right? Christmas is tomorrow. For everyone else, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, have a happy holiday. Have a good day, have some rest, leave a like, leave a comment, and fast forward. Mad love.